Geometry Dash 2.2 is staring down at us from the sky in nothing but complete shame, and humanity has seen much better days than the days it's been seeing currently. The human race gets closer and closer to hitting the fan and reaching complete anarchy as it gets more and more difficult for two video game enjoyers to simply agree on quite literally anything. But fear not, my friends, because a blessing from the sky is slowly but surely descending down to the human race right upon us, dropping in tilted towers to save the day once and for all. The only thing single-handedly holding the entirety of mankind all together is everybody's love for Geometry Dash. If you don't love Geometry Dash, then you're a disgraceful piece of garbage scumbag that should immediately get studied by the government and get kicked back into planet Mars where you came from. The Geometry Dash 2.2 update is a great uniter of our universe, and all of the love existing within our human species can easily be tied back to GD without question, but it would be a huge bummer if it all shattered out of human existence right in front of our very eyes. It would be a massive shame if the one joy that unites every member of mankind of every different background and difference into one piece just suddenly disappeared on us, never to be seen again by the naked eye. Like damn, well that would suck, wouldn't it? I mean, the My Little Pony fandom is basically the same exact thing, but if you want to get a real whooping from absolute bangers like Misfire by Galaxy SS, then 10 years of Impossible Game 3 history is the only place you can find that type of stuff. 10 years of Geometry Dash, just 6 years older than the average player. For every funny game, there was always a boy of the cones in return that equally opposes the positive force and balances the gap between good and evil. The GD community is practically bigger than the US population at this point, so this fate is undoubtedly inevitable. But what none of the neckbeards realize is that everything they do is only adding to GD as a game, whether it's a new story to tell, a new person to beat, or new content to consume. No matter what, it's always adding something to the game, and it's never removing anything unless you're a loser like this guy, but that doesn't count. But if everything we do only adds to the game, then how in the name of this unfinished bottle of pure life water does this one singular man have the power to kill Geometry Dash for the rest of time? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that he already did, and he's going to do it again? This video is so important that I was originally going to climb the wing of an airplane just to tell this story to every citizen on planet Earth, but unfortunately I realized that you can't really do that, so 5,456 people it is. Let me tell you the story of how this man is going to kill Geometry Dash forever. Geometry Dash 2.2 is taking longer to release than the time your mom takes to finish taking your first day of school photos, which both equal to about 7 years. One of them is unjustifiable, but the other one makes just enough sense for the community to at least tolerate it at the bare minimum. The endless cycle of juvenile children heavily increases because apparently everybody is Caillou and stopped aging at 4 years old for 7 years straight. The only thing these whippersnappers are actually somewhat half decent at is the almighty competition of who can change their underwear the most times while watching Collab Level by Mindcap, and it seems like Pull-Ups is going to be living in a mansion at this rate because you can always count on the dorks over at the GDYT comment section to make the biggest overreaction to quite literally anything as long as it overstimulates the 2 brain cells that exist in their crippling fish brain enough. Now I can make a whole entire other video dedicated to roasting these chumps for 10 hours straight, but 2.2 would probably release before I'm even halfway done roasting every single one down the list, because the year is 2019 and Geometry Dash for once wasn't averaging -9 trillion players on a good day. There were a few foreign creators who made some of the best levels of all time, but unfortunately they got sent straight to the Shadow Realm because Americans don't know how to speak anything other than English for more than 2 seconds, so they kind of just got lost in the black hole of irrelevance somehow. But remember, this is the story of how Geometry Dash died, so it wouldn't make sense to bring up all these irrelevant side characters who make positive contributions to society because that's boring. Who do you personally think would be the biggest threat to Geometry Dash as of right now? If you thought about any of these losers right here, then boy, you would be dead wrong, because what if I told you that the villain of this story was right in front of us all along? Kind of like Peter Parker without the costume if Spider-Man was secretly an evil guy who blew up $11 billion worth of property like the news outlets say. If you have a pair of working eyes that don't look like this, then this video's build up was probably really cheesy and about as useful as YouTube Premium, so I'm just gonna cut straight to the point. Sputnix is secretly a pathological criminal who's guilty of illegally pirating Peppa Pig for the 2DS and is currently on the loose, evading his well-deserved sentence of 25 years in max security prison. Sputnix was born on the— actually no, that's too far. Sputnix is widely known as the greatest creator to ever touch Geometry Dash with his stinky hands that he probably hasn't washed since 1967. Everyone else is desperately trying too hard, holding their last pinky on the very edge of Mount Everest to have anybody's eyes turn in at least the slightest general direction of the level that they spent hours building, but Sputnix couldn't possibly be bothered to care about any of that because he lives in a completely different realm than anyone else in the modern day building scene, and anyone who dares to even think about entering that that territory just ends up being absolutely cringe and gets legally restrained from touching the editor ever again, and 15 minutes later gets arrested for disturbing the peace. And those who don't use quantum physics for Geometry Dash levels are usually 9 out of 10 times twice as cringe as the other guy. All we can really do is just sit here and watch him pop off as he gets closer to world domination every second that passes. Sputniks in the creating scene was equally as cool as the dudes in 4th grade that touch the top of the door frame every time they see one. Anyone else who dares commit the unforgivable crime of trying to look cool in class ends up having the vertical of a literal 2-year-old and embarrasses themselves in front of everybody. Now Sputniks is most likely made up of 85% supernatural alien substances, and every now and then he sometimes attempts to give 0.25% of his powers to us mortal inhabitants of planet Earth, but it always fails no matter how hard he tries, and I think the reason is pretty obvious.
3 subpixels, red, green, and blue. These subpixels each have a minimum value and a maximum value, typically 0 to 255.
Yup. The interesting thing about Sputniks is that his style is literally impossible to even think about trying to recreate, so he canonically became the master of the whole entire universe by default, ruling over 100 million people without breaking a single sweat. But one day, Sputniks woke up in his stinky 1-star hotel quality sleeping bag and was like, you know what? I'm gonna dedicate the next 7 years of my life towards sculpting the most godlike masterpiece the entire human race will ever witness for the rest of world history. And then he created this. It will forever be placed right on top of the Mona Lisa. After Sputniks was done sitting on his butt for 25 hours a day, he upgraded from being lazy to being lazy 2.0 and took his well-deserved nap after following an even worse sleep schedule than the average victim of stage 5 Genshin Impact addiction syndrome. 2 years? Do you have any idea how many other things you could have gotten done in 2 years? Out of all the things you chose, the one thing you decided on was... this. What by Sputniks, to be put in history books for this beautiful treasure to be passed on to the next generation and the next. Now I could choose to be a normal human being and sit here sucking up to this level for the next 20 minutes like one of those low budget reaction channels using a broken Kinder Egg toy as a microphone while obnoxiously screaming about how Sputniks has actually secretly been the president of the United States of America this whole time like some cheesy anime godfather, but you know, that sort of may or may not have possibly might have already been done just a few times already. But hear me out. What if I told you that while you guys are sitting over there being unproductive and peeing your pants to this, I, on the other hand, took the wise initiative of moving into a sacred building in ancient Myanmar and took the pleasure time to meditate with some of the greatest thinkers of all time, and after some deep intellectual thought with the homies Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, I've come to the groundbreaking realization that the entire universe will unironically explode within the next 5 seconds.
Sometimes you just gotta stop and think for a bit. Think about what you wanna do with your life and what's important. Not just you, but to everybody. You see, you can make so much of a difference if you just put your mind to it. And never forget about this one thing. You're not here alone.
If we carefully uncover the police tape, then we might see what appears to be an innocent Geometry Dash level. Seems harmless, right?
I have been banned from Geometry Dash. And I think by doing that, I downloaded so many objects that the servers flagged me. Blame Sputniks, ban Sputniks. You know what? Ban Sputniks. It's his fault this is happening.
Well, here it is. Sputniks exposed. Say goodbye to your career and everything you worked for. You don't even remotely deserve any last words, young man. This is outrageous. This is disgusting. This is horrible. This is disgusting. Oh wait, I already said that one. Alright kids, let's just take a seat around the reading carpet for a moment and take a deep breath to calm ourselves down. Here's the deal. This nerd over here built a level that was so ginormously constipated with so many different stimulants on the screen all at once that even the literal internet and computer servers itself could not take it any longer. Therefore, the world was left with this. Well, gather around everybody. Geometry Dash has officially died 1876 to 2023. Rest in peace. Don't worry guys, I found his reboot card. The servers were only down for a day, but get your ears open everybody because I'm about to blow your mind just by analyzing what by Sputniks alone. This level by itself is telling us 3 ways that the Geometry Dash servers might not simply just have a tiny crash for a measly 6 hours, but the entire 10-year long game altogether could see its end for the rest of eternity, and it's only a matter of time. If our canonically doomed troglodyte collection of a species learns how to read a sentence that's more than 2 letters without dying, then chances are you might have stumbled upon something quite interesting. Look at this. Windows doesn't have enough memory to open up your so-called incomplete rushed garbage level according to your standards. Do you have any idea how much gigabytes it takes to fill up Windows? Look, it doesn't take that much to break Windows, but for a level built in the 2D Square Game editor, that's a godforsaken achievement. The police needs to investigate this man ASAP. Now, the Sputnik cinematic universe is interesting because of how there's quite literally zero coherence to anything here whatsoever, like those fandom pages where weebs overanalyze literal bogus that some random developer made as a last minute idea for a side mascot. There's no Sputnik's lore because he just messes around and does whatever he wants any day he feels like it. One minute he posts a level that looks like he used Esther's tutorial before he ended up scamming children, and before you know it, about a week later he uploads Shrek 5 onto the GD servers. But believe it or not, a connection still exists between all of these goodies. I mean, one level he's testing out 3D effects, and the next one he programs a fully playable 3D game. Now where else can we go with this pattern? You guys know the sequel of this level, How by Sputniks? Yeah, well the level I was supposed to be rambling about for the past 5 hours was coincidentally the perfect combination between How and Dim. Dim inspiring the angle and How inspiring the horrible gameplay. But unfortunately for you, I don't believe in any coincidences. Every installment in the series are all words that he still has much to tell us, but words so powerful we cannot bear hearing them now. So if everything I said so far is true, then that has to mean that there is something hiding in What by Sputnik that holds a source so powerful that us humans aren't supposed to consume it yet. So was I right, or is it all just a big fat stupid waste of my afternoon again? Well, yeah, I was right for once. See this? Well, good thing you didn't, because the human brain itself is not genetically developed enough or even scientifically capable to even theoretically perceive this part of the level. This is the 4th dimension, the juiciness behind the barrier of what our boring brain perceives as the 3rd dimension, which is probably a good thing because we couldn't even exist in the 4th dimension if we wanted to. So you know what I'm thinking, right? Why by Sputniks will exclusively be filmed in 4D graphics. I mean, he doesn't have anywhere better to go from here anyways. But here's the even better question. How would Geometry Dash itself even handle that? Sputniks has access to top secret government protected military programs that we don't even have the slightest bit of access to a free trial of yet. If he really wants to build a 4D level, then you know that boy's gonna do it no matter what, even at the cost of destruction for 10 years of history and an entire community. First ending unlocked. Now onto the second quest, where Sputniks doesn't end up being a pathologically corrupted brainwashing world leader that ruins everything and instead decides to do the honors of single-handedly saving humanity by letting us download Mega Hack version 1583. If we make the 4GB patch the Geometry Dash equivalent of immunizations, where you religiously have to get at 0.5 milliseconds upon being born, then everything would be fine, right? Well, you'd be dead wrong in that case, because it'd be stupid to think this guy doesn't always have a backup plan. Remember the 4th dimension? Well, thanks to this really dumb thing called string theory, the concept of more still exists out there. And where do we find them? Well, good question. Congratulations, you've officially arrived at the 10th and final dimension, where every project of imagination is one with reality. Man, this looks pretty cool. If only that could actually do something. That would be kinda nice, I think. Well, the most beautiful state of the literal universe is okay, I guess, but we got priorities. Back to blowing up Geometry Dash. Luckily, I'm a total genius that can do everything all by myself. Just gotta close the 97 tabs of YouTube tutorials real quick. Alright, just gotta plug this in, make sure it works, and the 10th dimension in Geometry Dash is ready to be released. Just gotta press upload and pray that it doesn't blow up the entire planet. Well, that was worth it. To summarize what we learned in Act 2, even if the universe somehow manages to survive after Sputniks builds the 100th dimension in a terrible scratch quality level editor, then nothing changes the fact that we're still doomed as a generation. Geometry Dash isn't safe because these stupid smart people have to come up with all this irrelevant nonsense that I never even heard of until making this stupid video, and if by chance our understimulated species decides that the only way to have fun is by using year 2073 technology gifted to us by Elon Musk himself to build the 24th dimension in the Impossible Game 3, then this game's software would probably malfunction and die forever, being burned alive in the deepest layer of the sun. As much as that would suck, there's still one last fate that's worse than anything I've mentioned so far. What if this was the limit to Geometry Dash? I want you all to think about why you play Geometry Dash in the first place. Okay, we get that you're terminally allergic to touching grass and human interaction, but I want you to think past that. What made you choose Geometry Dash out of all things? If we live in a generation where video games don't look like this anymore, then why do you still choose to play a game that only only runs on 10,080p. Well, that's because this game in particular is the gift that keeps on giving. You could be a 120-year-old grandpa who dedicated their entire 500-year lifespan to playing Geometry Dash in a low-budget senior home, and there's still going to be leftovers in the 1.9 dumpster that you still haven't discovered yet. But what if we run out of that? What if this really was the peak of Geometry Dash, and nobody uploads a level better than this ever again? I mean, every time the next quote-unquote greatest level of all time gets uploaded, it feels like the gap of improvement between its predecessor gets smaller and smaller, until one day, that gap of improvement turns into a meaningless pile of mush, and eventually the entire universe gets so boring that it decides to explode for some reason, and humanity ceases to exist for the rest of time. And that, my friends, would be the painful story of how Geometry Dash died for good. The fattest waste of a precious 10 years that could have been spent harassing Nintendo on their emails to fix their awful servers that have a 0.1% success rate of actually doing what it's supposed to. Just a black hole of nothingness where nothing exists. Geometry Dash is dead forever. This video would have worked just as well as a 5,000 paragraph pastebin exposal that completely destroys Sputnik's entire livelihood and ruins his chances of survival for the next 75 years, but the reason you guys are currently watching this in the form of a monetized YouTube video is first of all because I haven't uploaded anything since the literal Stone Age, but also because the Geometry Dash 2.2 update is in plain sight to the naked eye as we currently speak, and with all the community yapping about the 2.2 servers combusting into a giant explosion 0.2 zeptoseconds after the update is released, I wanted to enter the boxing ring myself with a different pair of gloves. Yeah, we can all agree we're gonna wake up with a big fat stinky pile of hot garbage underneath the big old Christmas tree this year, with a massive flood of new players that joined the game 5 minutes ago just for 2.2 after hearing one of their classmates talking about it that one time and thought it sounded pretty cool, only to open it up just to realize they made the editor impossible to use and end up building a simulator for a hyperactive monkey's fever dream, and the very moment they thought they did something slightly interesting, they head over to the recent tab only to find out that the same garbage move has been done about a gajillion times, and the game ends up looking like trash. But what about the inverse? Every single time a new clickbait level gets released, the literal world population goes nuts, to the point where that's the only thing they scream about for the rest of time, which already ended about 2 minutes ago. Now imagine that multiplied by about a million other different upcoming top 1 extreme demons at a time. Not even Elon Musk could buy the diaper store at this point. As soon as 2.2 releases, the Geometry Dash community would be about as enjoyable as sitting in a preschool class where the children can't stop yelling about Skibbity Toilet all day. Geometry Dash 2.2 is almost too big of a responsibility for anyone on Earth to handle, let alone a big fat pile of children that average around the age of 3 years old. And you can run, but you can't hide, because no matter which corner of the community you hide in, you can always count on the kids outside to always find a way to break in and ruin your blissful 2 seconds of silence, which would actually be a record considering that this worldwide tragedy is currently happening. And before you can even blink, Partition Xeon and Mulpan are gonna re-upload some scumbag level that uses this low effort Undertale block design because everyone's high and mighty savior Rob Top Games used it that one time, and now it's the greatest thing ever invented, and everyone's YouTube homepage will forever look like this until about 2 weeks later, when people finally learn how to use the editor again and also hopefully realize how obnoxious these dumb clickbait thumbnails are. If we zoom out of the picture, then dang, that's a giant mess if I've ever seen one. But the big question still stands: should we or should we not blame all of the damage on none other than Sputnik's? I don't know, like and subscribe for no reason.